by Owen in 1898. Here's one crazy last fact. Trail running has gained enormous popularity in recent times, and extremists of the sport have turned that into mountain peak running. The record fastest descent, 2 hours and 53 minutes. Might be faster by the time you hear this. It's crazy. We're now leaving the official boundary of Grand Teton National Park and entering a section of protected land that fills the space between Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park. This 7-mile stretch is officially named the John D. Rockefeller Jr. Memorial Parkway, in honor of the man who put up very large amounts of money to ensure that the original, rather narrow version of Grand Teton National Park was expanded to include bigger portions of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. As we drive around Grand Teton, I told you small portions of the story, but let's use this section of the road to fill out the Rockefeller connection. Most of us know that the Rockefeller family was one of the richest in the history of the U.S., and John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s father was in fact the richest man in the world due to his creation and involvement in Standard Oil. Standard Oil was forced to be broken up by a ruling by the Supreme Court, and from its pieces evolved massive energy companies we know today like Exxon, Mobil, Esso, and Chevron. At one stage, Rockefeller Sr. controlled 90% of the U.S.'s oil supply. Some economists have calculated his wealth at today's rate and concluded he was the richest man ever in U.S. history. Well, so far anyway. But this part of the drive is named for his son. Rockefeller Sr. was a noted philanthropist, giving to causes that enriched education, public health, art, and science. I guess he was never going to be able to spend his fortune on himself. His son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., followed his philanthropic trait with even more gusto. He felt strongly that it was important to preserve and conserve wild and important regions with significant ecological value. That followed the same thoughts of some of the earliest settlers here. Rockefeller Jr. was willing to make very large and expensive investments to protect lands in different locations, and that included here in the Tetons. Knowing his philanthropic ways, in 1926, he was invited to visit the area by Horace Albright, who was then the superintendent of Yellowstone. Albright wanted to see the area become a continuation of Yellowstone. John D. Rockefeller's visit was kept something of a secret, but when he arrived, he immediately fell in love with the area. At the time, only the mountains themselves and the glacial lakes were included in the new Grand Teton National Park boundary. Rockefeller was appalled by the ad hoc and even tacky nature of the development that was taking place around and between the lakes and the Snake River, and he became interested to purchase the land to donate back to the national park. Sounds simple, right? No. A major battle of wills and politics took place, although I think you can already tell who won out in the end, just by the name of this road. When purchasing the land to expand the original smaller version of Grand Teton National Park, it was decided to keep John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s participation somewhat secret. The fear was twofold. There was concern that the idea of the rich benefactor buying up the land and then donating it back to the national park would most likely upset the staunch ranching community, who already had an inherent distrust of government and interference. And if the word got out about the land being bought up by one of the richest men in the country, well, that would drive prices sky high. So, the Snake River Land Company was created at arm's length away from Rockefeller. It even employed a local banker from Jackson to be the local agent who bought from local ranchers, not knowing what the true purpose of the purchase was for. The goal was to buy as much as 150,000 acres with a budget of $1.4 million. The Snake River Land Company was largely successful in making acquisitions. Economic times were tough for ranchers. By 1930, after roughly 35,000 acres were purchased, this is Flag Ranch on our left, another historic dude ranch. There's also an information center if we feel like we want to stop in for Yellowstone info. If we don't need to stop, it's okay, just keep on going and we'll soon be at the Yellowstone entrance gate, where they'll give us a map and park paper. There's also an info center when we reach West Thumb, which is where we'll join the Grand Loop Drive. We're nearly at the end of the John D. Rockefeller Jr. Memorial Parkway, which means we're nearly at the beginning of Yellowstone National Park. Just to quickly finish off our Rockefeller story. Because of the political storm the Snake Land Company caused among the local ranching community, the government was unable to accept the land donation from Rockefeller for nearly 15 years. He grew tired of the situation and set an ultimatum that if the donation wasn't accepted, he would sell it off to the highest bidder. FDR stepped in and absorbed the land into a new monument he created by executive order. That took the land off Rockefeller's hands, but it still took another 8 years of political wrangling before the national park expansion to become official. By then, local opposition had just about petered out to nothing, as the new economy of tourism had created good times for the Jackson area. So, my friends, this is the end of the Grand Teton National Park tour. I sure hope you've enjoyed it. It's now time for us to move on to the next phase of our tour, which is, of course, Yellowstone. We'll have to stop at the Yellowstone entrance gate. Let's give them a nice hello at the entrance gate, and they'll give us a Yellowstone map and the annual newspaper guide. I'll be back once we're on the other side of the entrance.
Quay được cái cảnh nó Yellowstone.
Được rồi.